Hello, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Zac Williamson. I am the CEO and co-founder of Aztec Labs. We are a privacy-first programmable layer 2 for Ethereum. Effectively, we've been working for 8 years now with a singular mission of recreating the smart contract ecosystem of Ethereum, but one where you have private information on-chain and you can transact over private data. And I'm here to talk about why privacy matters, why this technology matters, what the future, the imminent future of blockchain is going to look like, and how embracing privacy technology is going to lead to an explosion of liquidity on-chain. So I want to present a new framework, a new canon for why Web3 is going to become so valuable in the future. Because it's a very simple equation. When you have private information on-chain, where that data is encrypted, your ledger is encrypted, and every individual transactions are effectively using zero-knowledge proofs to manipulate that encrypted data, you get the best of all worlds. You get the strong guarantees of decentralization, but you also don't have this enforced transparency where everything is visible on-chain. And if you have these properties, what that enables is identity. Instead of just being a string of letters and characters on-chain, you can now be an individual. I can prove on a network like Aztec that my name is Zac Williamson. I'm 37 years old, I live in the United Kingdom. And I'm proving this not to individuals, but to smart contracts. And with identity, you can now meaningfully own assets on-chain. Your assets don't need to be purely synthetic. They can be representations of real-world assets, where you have non-custodial wallets on-chain that can own and trade and transact with these assets because on-chain protocols, smart contracts, can perform the required compliance checks and regulatory checks to understand that, yes, you are allowed to trade this asset, you're allowed to hold it. And what this does is it unlocks effectively DeFi, but for assets sourced in the real world. And I'm going to explain in the next 10 minutes why I think this is going to be so revolutionary. But before I do, just a quick segue into what the Aztec network is. So it's fully permissionless, fully decentralized. As a layer 2 on Ethereum, it functions like a blockchain network using Ethereum for consensus. And we have smart contracts, but they're private. This is why we are calling Aztec the first feature-complete blockchain in the world, because with Aztec, you can meaningfully link what happens in a smart contract with what happens in the real world, in Web 2. No longer are you limited by purely synthetic assets and instruments, but you can have meaningful information on-chain now. We've been building this for 8 years. Well, 6 to 8, depending on how you count it. Our testnet's live, fully decentralized. People are building apps on it actively as I speak, and we are aiming to launch the full network early next year. I want to pose a question to you all. Has blockchain met its original ambitions and aspirations of its creators, of people like Satoshi Nakamoto, people like Vitalik Buterin? And I would argue that whilst blockchain is extraordinarily valuable, whilst it's very useful, whilst it's a powerful technology, it has nevertheless failed to meet the aspirations of its inventors. Bitcoin was not designed to be digital gold. It was designed to be a payments vehicle, a payments mechanism where a digital currency could compete and contest with fiat issued by sovereign states. Ethereum was designed to enable decentralized banks. It was designed to enable financial products and services that we take for granted in the real world, but in a much more permissionless environment. And again, we've largely seen that fail. We don't have decentralized banks. We do have stablecoins, and we do have stablecoin payments, which is important, but it's not the full picture. And I pose a question to you. Why is this the case? Why has blockchain failed to break out of its Web3 bubble and become global payment infrastructure, global financial infrastructure that everybody uses? And I would argue that the key reason is a lack of privacy. Everything that happens on blockchains like Bitcoin, it's fully public, which means you can't put your real-world identity on that network. And without that, smart contracts, blockchain protocols, they can't perform the logical checks and guarantees that they need to determine if you are allowed to hold or trade an asset that is sourced from the real world, that exists within a legal, a regulatory jurisdiction on this planet. But with privacy technology, you can do that all. And that's what makes me excited. And I'm going to explain now why this is valuable. This is not just a synthetically interesting topic. This is not just an academically interesting topic. And I'll explain why. Where does all the value on blockchain come from? All the money that is used in this industry, that is used to create these incredible conferences like TOKEN2049, it only comes from two sources. There's dollar-backed stablecoins, and there's the native value of economic consensus on a blockchain, the consensus token. How much are people willing to pay in Bitcoin or Ethereum or Solana to get a trustless record of events? To give an example of why this is the case, imagine if the price of Ethereum went to 0 tomorrow. We all know the value of every single token on Ethereum would also go to 0, with the exception of dollar-backed stablecoins. I'm going to posit this to you. This liquidity universe from these two sources, it's tiny relative to existing capital markets. The AUM of BlackRock, for example, is substantially higher than the total value locked on the Ethereum network. And that's just one company. Without being able to reach into the real world, without being able to tap real-world assets on-chain and make them liquid, use them as a source of liquidity for DeFi and other financial products and services, the growth ceiling for crypto is fatally capped because we only have these two value sources. That needs to change, and privacy is going to change it. So this is where I said the new canon exists. With identity, you have non-custodial accounts where I can prove who I am, or it could be an entity. It doesn't need to be a person. It could be an organization. It could be a DAO. But where you have checks and balances and some kind of logical conditions that give smart contracts an ability to understand who you are. For example, I could prove I possess a Coinbase account, and I've gone through Coinbase KYC. Or I could use something like ZK Passport to create a zero-knowledge proof of my passport to prove I'm a UK citizen. And then I can use that in DeFi as a compliance tool. And identity, well, it enables ownership now. I want to be able to own something in the real world based on, where every transaction happens on-chain. The issuance, the trading, the settlement. This is really in Aztec's DNA, because what we started out doing in 2017 was not privacy tech. Me and my co-founder, we were trying to build a traditional financial product on-chain, serving existing capital markets, serving mid-market debt. But we needed privacy to do that. And now we're doing it. We made privacy, and now companies, Web3 companies, are using the technology we've built for that original use case that we were trying to do in 2017. We have companies building mid-market debt products using our technology. And finally, we can get to self-sovereign ownership, non-custodial wallets holding real-world assets. For this to happen, privacy must become a core value of blockchain. It can't just be an Aztec-specific thing. We're just going to be one of the first. Once you have real-world assets on-chain, and you can put them into DeFi protocols, that's the important thing. Right now, you do have real-world assets on-chain, but they are too abstract. To hold these assets, you need to go through third-party information brokers, information custodians, because you can't really hold a bond or a mortgage or a syndicated loan on-chain. What's happening is that somebody else is owning it, and they're just giving you some digital proxy, but that proxy is not tradable. You can't put it into a decentralized exchange because not everybody can hold that asset. But if you can perform compliance checks, regulatory checks, within a smart contract framework, then you can create an equivalent of Uniswap for real-world assets and associated DeFi primitives, and then that unlocks these assets as a source of liquidity. And that turns the liquidity, amount of liquidity available, it stops being measured in the billions, and it starts being measured in the trillions. So how are we going to do this all? How are we going to pull blockchain into the mainstream, make it global financial infrastructure, the first thing we need to do is we need to interface with Web 2 systems. We need to be able to get information from Web 2 into smart contracts, into Web 3, trustlessly, using technologies like zk-TLS to get information from web servers into smart contracts, using technologies like zk-email to get information from emails into smart contracts. For example, I can use the technology that we're building to prove that I have an email from His Majesty's Revenue and Collection Services complaining about my late tax filing, which proves I'm a UK taxpayer. And you can put that in a smart contract. And then that smart contract can issue a credential based off of this proof, saying, yes, OK, this person is probably a UK taxpayer. And then you can use that credential in other products and services built on chain in a composable manner, creating this a form of holistic identity, where instead of your identity being defined by one centralized source, it's being drawn from a large number of disparate sources, where companies can build products on Aztec where they create identity solutions that they need for their specific products. But in doing so, they issue a digital credential that can be used by other products and services, which can then be used to create meta-credentials, effectively allowing an understanding of who you are and what you do to be sourced from a very large cast of actors, which I think is a lot more secure and much more scalable than the existing system, where if I want to KYC myself to do something in the real world, some financial transaction, I've got to go through some process and then if I want to do if I need to go through some other regulated transaction, I have to do that KYC process all over again. Because these companies don't share data, they don't trust each other. With programmable privacy, with composable smart contracts, you can change that all and create a genuinely portable system for identity. And then the final technique is to establish digital sovereignty. Once you have these systems, these protocols existing on chain, you can create precedent that owning a digital asset represents a claim to property in the real world. And once that's established, the world will change. So the ingredients to unlock blockchain are a zero-knowledge programming language, Noir, that we've built. It's very high level. It abstracts away all the cryptography. Any dev on blockchain can build with Noir and create private programs. And then we have the Aztec network, which is effectively an execution environment for Noir, where we have an encrypted state ledger, encrypted blockchain, which understands privacy, understands private transactions, which when you combine with Noir, means you can have, I can call a smart contract that is private, that calls another private smart contract that somebody else wrote, that calls another private smart contract that somebody else wrote, effectively enabling the force multipliers of blockchain. And then finally, you need state-of-the-art cryptography to tie it all together, which is something that we excel at. The cryptography we've invented powers a lot of blockchain protocols today. What I'm talking about is not science fiction. It's science fact. The Aztec technology stack is being used in the real world today. You can download an app on the App Store, ZK Passport, that uses our tech, which allows you to trustlessly get proofs of your citizenship, of your age, of your name, without revealing any additional information. We have bank-grade private security tokens. We have anonymous social media. This is just the start. This is the start of the storm that is to come, where we're going to be creating the seeds for real decentralized banking, fulfilling the real original vision of blockchain from all those years ago, finally, in 2026, creating, for the first time, the world's first feature-complete blockchain. Thank you very much.